Yep, I'm back at it. Going to try and knock out a little bit more of the Markhor project. Let's see. So, where I left off last time, we got it set up so that making choices on the zone column here would filter down the collectibles column on the right. And if you're not familiar with what we're doing here, this is the app that I'm working on, which is kind of like a slightly more elaborate version of a classic to-do app. So it's a checklist thing. But the items on the to-do list are kind of categorized by, well, they're grouped by category, and then also they're associated with a zone, which is an area in a game map world. And this is all in the effort to collect all the animals, all the different species in Metal Gear Solid 3. So, just a little recap, a little background. That's what I'm working on right now. Yeah, and so the filtering, that was an important step. The next thing that I'm going to be looking at setting up is basically organizing the item lists into groups. So if we go down the list here, you'll notice, because I sorted by group ID, that we have like a bunch of snakes, followed by, well, these are mushrooms, different types of mushrooms, and then followed by frogs. So these are implicitly grouped right now, but I'm going to look at maybe setting this up. Potentially this will end up being like an accordion, kind of like a collapsible section kind of a thing. I don't know how far I'm going to take it, but since I want to use this app as a Twitch overlay, it would be nice to be able to condense all the information and have like a strong at-a-glance use case, as well as being able to drill in and get details when I need them. And hopefully I should be able to do that with a minimal kind of interaction. So later on we'll look at setting up keyboard shortcuts or just like keyboard navigation, so I don't have to reach for a mouse. I can just like hit the keyboard kind of while I'm playing. That's the theory, anyway. So okay, we're working on React components for this stuff, and right now, the collectibles list, which represents basically everything that you see here, is being rendered as a single unordered list, and we've got some styles being applied to that. We kind of tidy up a little bit. So I guess the next thing is to just kind of model out how I would want things to go, and take it from there. And I guess I'll bridge the gap as needed, whatever the difference is between reality and my intent. So I'm going to start by just creating a new file for my new component, and this will be a collectible group, I guess. Sure. And as always, I'm going to import React. And I guess I'll also grab prop types. And we'll start the way that I usually start with a function-based component. Like I try to keep everything stateless initially, and then I introduce local state as needed after the fact. So so this is kind of what we're dealing with here. And yeah, so that's what we've got. I guess I'll start to think about what we're gonna need. Hey FM, good to see you. So I'd like to outline what I'm gonna need in my prop types for the component. So for this, the idea here is that I'm modeling a subsection of this list. So I'm gonna want like a label, which will be a string. I'm gonna want, what else? Some kind of array of items. So because we're using a mutable, again, I'm gonna label that as an object. Oh, FM's getting back into React. Perfect time to catch your stream. Yeah, well, I think it's nice to kind of see how other people handle stuff. I wonder though, have you ever worked with flow type? I've suddenly debated the idea of introducing that on this project basically after I finished. So it would be a big refactor probably, but it's something I'm thinking about. Okay, so what else am I going to need? I need to know about the active zone. And this is going to be interesting because you've heard of Flow, but you haven't used it. Yeah, I get that a lot. I know people that use Flow all the time for React Native, but I don't know anybody that's used it for just regular web stuff. And I wonder if that's like a cultural thing or what. So active zone is going to be a number. And so part of my idea for this is that each section will potentially be collapsible like an accordion, and each section will have see how I want to explain this. Each section is going to show all the items that belong to that group, but I'm going to try to like dim out or desaturate. It's going to be a contrast adjustment. The items that don't apply to the zone that you're currently filtering by, because I want to be able to know that I've got outstanding things still to get, even if I'm not in the zone. I think I may backtrack on all of this, but yeah, so I think, generally speaking, we've got 48 items all told, and I think if I have collapsible groups, that's going to go a long way for kind of managing the screen real estate. What's going to be important to me is to not have the total counts being messed with by my filter. Like, I always want to know that I've got 3 of 6 snakes. And so if I'm going to do that, and I'm going to generate the count inside the group itself, which is still debatable, then I'm going to want to be able to check against the active zone inside here. So in order to do that, what else? I guess I could actually forget about the active zone. I could do active items, which would be pre-filtered based on the membership data. That way I don't have to pass the membership table through everything. Let's try this. And so that would be an object. Yeah. So, okay. Just kind of thinking this through. So in theory, I'm just gonna ignore all this earlier item work, because I'll want to refer to that later on as I flesh out the collectible group stuff. So for now, I'm gonna adjust this to return. Let's see. I'm like a weirdo with semantic web stuff, so I'm going to use a definition list, and I'm going to use a DT here, which is like the title or the term, I think. And so we'll toss the label in there for the definition term, and then the definition, I don't remember what DD means. Definition, it's like the definition or something. Definition term. And this is, so the idea here is that a definition list is used for things like a glossary, where you have a series of DTs followed by DDs, and they alternate back and forth. And I think the default styling is, how does it work? You know what, this is stupid. I am, I totally am just gonna generically div it up. But I will use like an H4 in here, and a div for the lower part, which technically I guess that would be like a UL, because we're going to have list items in here with a class name of item, and this would be a class name collectible list like I was using before. Single variable, yeah. Tag names, they're tricky. So, all right. So the items would go here, but I'm not going to pass anything in just yet. So back over here, I have props categories. And so categories, like the rest of my data, is an immutable JS map, which has values that are the IDs for each row. The keys are IDs for each row, and then the value is the row itself, the complete row. So I'm going to basically ignore the keys, converting to value sec. And then I'm going to sort by, I'm going to sort by name, and then I'm going to map, and so for this I want to, this is my set of category groups. I'm going to add some line breaks like I like to do, just to keep things a little more shallow. So this is the category, which I'm going to feed to my collectible group. And active items is, I'm going to punt on that for right now. Items is going to be a mutable list, just an empty one. Label is going to be the category name. And then, so what I'll do here is, all of a sudden I find myself returning a div with groups in it. And so what I should see at the end of this is just a series of category names with a dumb placeholder item. And that looks about right. Okay. So now the question becomes, how do I satisfy the rest of the stuff? So the active items. The active items. This is kind of interesting because this is like an intersection of stuff. And I think really the fact of the matter is each zone only has I don't know, maybe 6 max active collectibles that you can get. It can be pretty lax. It's worth thinking about how big the search space is when you're going to be like looking for items included in a collection, but all of our data is pretty small. So what I'll do is I'll look at props.activeZone here, and I will look at props.membership items by zone. And so these are going to be the active items. And so part of what I was thinking about was whether or not I wanted to pass in a different set of active items to each category. You know, so basically filtering down the active items so that there was only an intersection of items that are active that are also a part of that category. And I could probably do it if I refer to the collectibles data set. I could generate pairs of item ID and category ID and then filter by that. But I feel like the data size, the size of this collection is going to be small enough that would actually be more work than just always checking if always checking if you're just in whatever that is. So okay, that's where active items is going to come in. And so what else do we need? We need the items themselves. So that means that I need items by category. And this is something that I may want to just build up in the store directly. I haven't done that, but this is a static restructuring that could happen when we get the data back from the server. But I'll do it at render time to start. Oh, what are you using for the store? So right now I am using a combination of Redux, React Redux, and Redux Thunks. Yeah, the async middleware. So it's all pretty bare bones. I'm not doing sagas. I'm not doing like any of the elaborate generator stuff. I'm bringing in all the stuff that we use at work. So I'm not doing anything bleeding edge on the client side. The back end for this project was all written in Rust, and it was using a web framework called Rocket and a database layer called Diesel. So that was where all my new stuff was. But yeah, I think at this point I'm mostly on autopilot doing stuff that is pretty standard for the day-to-day. So the back end is all stuff that's completely new to me. Oh, you don't work in back end typically? Or that stuff that I just described is all new to you? The stuff I described, yeah. Well, I think in fairness, the stuff I described is new to everybody. Most of this tech was only kind of fleshed out in the past year or so. It's all very new, and that makes it exciting. So good times. So what else? I think I want to value sec the collectibles before I group them up. I'm not sure that actually matters. That may be unnecessary. I'm going to leave it out and see what happens. So we're building a map with the category ID as the key, and then there should be a list of items inside of there. So items by category, get category .id. That seems right. Okay. Just checking things over briefly here. So one of the problems with this as written is that active zone can be null, which is what you get when you're not filtering by a zone. And so this would result in undefined, as I showed in the last stream. So props.activeZone equals null. Then I want items by zone. Then I want the whole thing. And this is gross, so I'm going to rewrite it as an if. And it breaks my heart to have to do it like this, where I initialize active items here and then reassign it for each branch. But that is the cost. Like with block assignment in Rust, which I just came off of, I could have done const active items right here and received whatever the result of this branch is. And I wouldn't have to do an early initialization. I wouldn't have to make it mutable so that I could overwrite it. Nah. Nope, no fun. I got used to that with Scala also. So, yep, maybe ES 2018 is gonna give me block assignments. Several weeks later, you'll be thankful to have a healed heart. Yeah. Yep. All right, so in theory, this kind of looks mostly correct, but anytime I'm working with immutable JS, I'm fairly error prone because it never quite sits the way I expect it. But we'll see. So the idea would be now to take props.items and map them into this guy. And we'll just grab the name and we'll set a key based on the item ID. And I'm going to line break here, even though it's cheeky. And I thought I saw it work just then. And then something happened. What happened? Well, I guess I'll ask the compiler. What happened, my man? Cannot read property map of undefined. Alright, well that sucks. And so in this case, items is undefined for some reason. And if I open up the DevTools, oh, server responded, no, that's nothing. Using maps as children, not fully supported. So there was that value sec that I pulled out because I wasn't sure I needed it. Turns out I need it. I'm pretty sure. But which one was that? CollectibleGroup by, that was it. And so that's part of it. I'm still not done though. What else? Yeah, I get it. I get that this is undefined. Is it just that it's an empty group? What is the label? Birds. Now, birds is not empty. I guess... What else do we have here? Yeah, look at that. Items has a bunch of stuff in there. So So what's the deal? Oh, well, I guess it's probably one of the later groups. I probably just haven't run into it yet. So let me just play through. Because at some point, I could add a watch for props.items. Because one of these days, oh, I would have had to have set the breakpoint a little earlier, I guess, like maybe up at the return. See, in this case, props.items is undefined. And so that's probably throwing errors already during the initial setup. Yeah, this isn't going great. Okay. So let's rethink this. What can I do different here? I guess, well, I guess first of all, I really need to be sure that I have items to work with. Is that what I need? I'm going to focus on things in here. So, that seems fair. So we'll get null if there's nothing there. Otherwise, we'll iterate through. And this may just be like a bootstrapping phase thing. So I'm going to add a console warn. And I'm going to use a template string saying group has no items. And this is props.label. And so I'll come back over here, check my log output. Yeah, see, I'm sending in undefined at one point. And then it also looks like everything starts up with no items, probably because the data hasn't loaded yet. And that's a really good point. So something that I can do to help mitigate this is to basically let's look at the app.js for a second. So I can hold these back until the data fetch is completed, right? So how would I go about doing that? And where do I want to do it? Normally, actually, I'm going to do it in here. So I'm just going to have a global loading flag. A promise, yeah, pretty much. So this loading flag is going to be a Boolean. So let's switch that around. It's required. I'm going to go visit my initial state object. And this is going to basically signify the bootstrapping either being in progress or not. Yeah. I'm changing my mind. I'm just going to hold everything back until this is ready. So what this means is that I can do a quick check at props data load complete. And I can just bail way early if it's not ready. The zone list is a little more fault tolerant. I don't think it's really going to hurt anything if it tries to render before the zones load in. This stuff is doing a lot of interrelated data store lookup stuff, so just want to make sure that all the relationships are settled and in the store before we start poking around. So now the question is, how do I go about looking into this? And I think really I already have an action that kind of represents what I need, more or less. So I know that I need a reducer for function data load complete. It's going to take a default value. Oh god, I'm all thumbs. It's going to take an action. And so kind of what I was thinking was I could listen for all the other fetch successes, but I don't think I want to do that. I think I want an explicit action to signify that this is done. And so we'll set up a switch for action type. Default is going to return state. And I'm going to crack open the actions script. And I'm just going to make another pair, I guess. Data load success. Actually, I'm going to do a single one because I'll get back to you, compiler. Be chill. What are you? Oh, there's an extra J somewhere. On line 97. Okay. I get it. So this promise all is responsible for collecting all the data from all the different endpoints we have here. And so then, and I don't care what there is being passed back here, I can dispatch type action types something like that. So all this should happen, and then after we send the all clear. And if things are bad and the server doesn't respond for any one of these, I will never get the all clear, and basically it'll be obvious to me because none of my data will show up. And you know, if I were building a commercial product of some kind, I would want to I would want to handle the failure state a little more nicely, but I think this will suffice for what we're looking at. It's what do they call this in distributed computing? I forget. There's a term. It's like a sink or something. A sink or a guard. Something like that, where you have a threshold step where you're waiting for a bunch of stuff to finish, and then you can allow things to proceed. Anyway. So not super into the indents here. But okay. So back over here, I need a data load complete. I have it as a part of wait, what am I missing? Because I thought that was all wired up. Oh, I defined the reducer, but I don't think I didn't do anything with it, and I didn't add it to my combine reducers call. And so I need to compare. Oops. I need to compare my action type to data load complete, and when that shows up, I just return true over here. All right, well that's happier. We still have some key problems, but that's not so bad. And I think my filtering is, I still haven't done anything there. So we got to wire that up. So, all right. So what's next? Looking at the keys. So These keys should be okay to me. Line 72 on group. That doesn't mean anything, I guess. That also doesn't help. I wonder what the damage is here. So the active items call out we can repair. That should be doable. So active items can potentially be nothing if the zone is not in the map. Then it would be undefined. In which case, I could just return an empty list. Because that's fundamentally equivalent, right? Not equivalent in terms of memory or layout or anything, but I guess the opposite. I could also do the opposite. I could. Let's look at how. I could say active items is not required. And then, well, that's a little weird. But I kind of feel like it's okay. So I would just not use active items if, or I could initialize active items inside here if they're not passed in. I feel like I like the old way better. Because then I know that if I'm not passing something in, it's by accident. I think that makes things a little more safe. So we've got individual items happening. The unique key thing is a little worrying. Oh, wait, that's in the other component. I need an ID per group. Totally legit call out. Thank you. Thank you, ESLint, and all of your React specific rules. So I need to use like the category ID for the key here. And voila, there we go. ESLint is no longer mad. Okay. So I said at the start that I like to make sure my components are stateless for as long as I don't have a direct need for local state. And if I'm going to make these sections collapsible, I feel like I would want that to be local state. I could kind of go one way or the other on that. But that's kind of what I'm thinking. It would also be totally legit to basically carve out a section of my Redux store and store a bunch of booleans in there, one per category, to say whether or not it was meant to be collapsed or not. But local state, you know, for something like this, it really comes down to the level of persistence, I feel like. Like if I say, for example, that the default state for all groups is going to be closed on page load, and then you open them up. Having that stuff in local state is fine because it's always going to default back to that. If I were going to hope to, I don't know, encode that stuff as a preference in a cookie, then I might want to push some of the responsibility out to the store so I could passively cache that stuff as the actions are being dispatched. But yeah, I'm glad you agree, FM. Local state doesn't seem like it would be too bad for this. I'm also thinking a little bit about the layout. So I need some classes on this stuff because I need to not be shedding 30, 31, almost 32 pixels above and below every section. Yeah, I think default everything, if I default everything to closed, that makes the most sense. It puts the emphasis on the at-a-glance use case, and it should hopefully be simple enough to expand stuff open as needed. Most of these groupings are pretty small. You know, there's like only 3 or 4 things in there. So I'll probably get the sense of what I'm missing fairly quickly. I think this miscellaneous section is pretty big, and snakes is also pretty big, but I know for a fact that there are 3 snakes in that list that you don't see until the very end of the game. Even more specific could be only having it so a single thing is open at a time. Yeah, like a classic accordion setup. And so if I wanted to do that, where you automatically closed the other section that was open, then that would make a lot of good sense for recording that data in the store. Because then you would probably be like sending, all right, this is the active group. Yeah, I would most likely want to be able to track more than one group at a time. So, all right. Let's see. What's next? I guess getting the filtering to work again would be a good next step. I'll worry about the layout a little bit later. Actually, what I will do is I'll slap a class name on this div, and did I already use that? I must have. I'm gonna have to rename some of this stuff since I moved it all around. So this is going to be collectibles, and then I'm going to use that to scope some selectors. Collectibles H4. Just going to cut the margin right off of that. And the padding. And we've got some padding on this stuff. Let's see. So where are we seeing that? That's on the list itself. Yeah, that's not bad. So if I want Oops. A little bit of spacing. And again, I'm going for gross colors because I'm in prototyping mode, and I just like to be able to see kind of where the bounding box is for whatever I'm working on. So we'll pick some colors. Yikes. That's happening. It's a great aesthetic, yeah. It's yeah, it does have that VGA vibe, huh? It kind of always ends up that way when I start picking named colors from the web palette. That's what happens. I try to stick with those named colors. I love me some corn silk, you know, some I don't know, some white smoke. It's all good stuff. So, all right, back to the task at hand. Oh, and I do want a tiny bit of padding. So I'm going to take a 0.1 rem in there. You got to have something. Okay. So, filtering. So we've got this active items list, which should be an empty list at the worst of times. And so I should be able to say in here, actually I'm going to import class names. And so the way class names works is it's a function that takes a variety of inputs and produces a string with the appropriate CSS classes in it, theoretically. So I can give it a straight up string of item, and then I can also give it an object with keys of inactive, and then the value is basically the test. And so if I do active items, right, from props, includes item.id, and this line is way too long, so I'm going to start line breaking on attribute and more. Let's see what else can I do to tame this line. 98, yikes. So what I can do to satisfy myself is yep, I'm gonna do a full multi-line arrow function here. So const class name is going to be the result of this, and then because it's a multi-line, I have to use the return keyword, which is fine. I'm going to drop the class name in there. And what else do I need? I need to close out my map. Okay. So here's the deal. I should have no inactive items at all when none is selected. But if I move to one of these other zones, there we go. We see a few of them in there. Okay. So now I need to figure out a way to make these look less contrasty, and I feel like what I'm gonna do is do item inactive. Oops. And I'm gonna drop the opacity to 0.7. Is that enough? No, that's not enough. 0.4. Oh yeah, here we go. 0.5 might be it though. So now we've got this section here that's all dimmed out. We've got rat, which is not happening. I feel like I could go back down to 4. I feel like that isn't dramatic enough at 0.5. And of course, this is going to have to change around as soon as I actually pick colors and that kind of thing, because this is part of it is the value of the colors that are in play right now are doing a lot for the contrast. So I guess I'll have to do another pass before this is done. But for right now, that's pretty dramatic. If it'll be a transparent background overlaid on the stream, yeah. So I'm not entirely sure how I want to do that. For right now, I'm figuring that I'm going to shrink down the game screen. Maybe. So let's see what it looks like right now with the OBS thing that I have. Of course, the sizing is going to be off now that I have 2 columns in here, but let's see. Okay, well, I guess that kind of works. Interact. So there I go. I've got the little interaction panel, courtesy of OBS, and so I should be able to scroll this and make some adjustments there. And I figure my plan is sort of like I'm probably gonna embed it on the right hand side. And let me see if I can approximate this. I'll do it on the right hand side, and I'll have the camera there, and I'll probably like nudge it to the point where the scroll bar isn't visible, because I need the scroll bar but nobody else does. And it's gonna be like half as wide as it is right now, because I'm gonna have a set of tabs that are pinned up to the top there that will alternate between the zone list and the item list. And if I have my way, I'm gonna set it up in such a way that that I'll be able to use keyboard navigation to basically flip between the 2 lists extend or collapse and expand each of the groups and make my selections all from the keyboard. So just like cursor keys and space probably is all I would be using for that. If I can figure out a way to do it one-handed, that would be even better, because this game is a PS3 game, so I'm going to have to be handling a controller. But yeah, that's kind of the idea. I guess part of my issue with doing a transparent overlay for this is that Metal Gear Solid uses the left and right corners of the screen for HUD stuff, and so that's why I didn't use a camera the last time I streamed it. I didn't use my face rig, nothing like that, because I didn't want to interfere with the game frame. But for these kind of more exotic fetch quest trophy pursual streams, I figure it's less about showing off the game and more about just relaxing and shooting the shit and casually checking stuff off the list. Also, you need to end up having to give all the text a border for it to stand out. Yeah. So, yeah, I have a lot of experience with that kind of nonsense, I think I would say. We do a lot of text label stuff on top of images at work. So overlaying shot numbers on top of thumbnails. Like traditionally you would do that stuff stenciled in on the frame, but for the web I'm using a combination of opacity and text shadow to kind of give an outline for the text. It actually takes quite a bit more resource wise to get the browser to render that stuff at scale. So I'd rather not do that if I could avoid it, but it'll be fine if I do. Again, the number of things that I have to deal with here are pretty small. So okay, we've got a little sort of prototype going. We've got the filter feedback happening. So what else? What's next? I guess counts is a thing that I need. So maybe that's something that I can add in pretty quickly here. I'm going to shrink this back down. And yeah, there we go. So for each group, I want to know how many items are in the group and how many items are collected. So how many things I've picked up, like what my progress is. And so that should be trivial, right? If I have items, all right, well, what I can do is const count equals, and I'm going to do a ternary here, I guess. Just looking at items, if I have them or not. And if I do, I can do a template string with yeah. Oops. So that's my total. And so I wonder if a mutable has count, like in the same way that I'm used to in Scala or in Rust, where I can count get a count of the items that have been collected. And so that should be 0 in all cases. No? We don't like that? Unexpected token, but where? Oh. I'm going to remove the parens, leave them here. All right. Oh yeah, look at that. 0 of undefined. I love it. So items count seems to be okay. What I'll do is I haven't added in the code to toggle the field on a given record yet, but I can use SQL to edit the table, and I can flip the bit on one of the rows. Okay, so props.items.length. Maybe that's what we're talking about there, because it's an immutable list. Yep. And then I'll just put a coy little question mark of question mark in there for the initial load state. Because that's kind of cute, I guess. So I think at this point I'm kind of pleased with where things are, although there are some things I'm undecided about that may require some radical changes to have this as architected. I'm not going to worry too much about that right now. But it's just in the back of my mind. I think I still have a ton of code that's dead over in this neck of the woods. So let's see. So we'll just prune that out. I just checked where you work off of your Twitter out of curiosity, and what a cool studio to work for. Yeah, it's pretty wild. We do a lot of unusual stuff, and a lot of that is driven by the nature of the company. So we do a lot of software targeting users who barely use computers. And I don't mean that in the literacy sense. It's more like they don't They don't sit at desks. They don't have a computer at their desk, that kind of thing. So we do a lot of stuff for large format touchscreens, projection systems, that kind of non-standard computing patterns, which makes it kind of interesting in its own right. So okay, got rid of the dead code. And so now I think this is where I will look at my diff and decide if everything that's in there is what I want. So what do we have? We've got some basic styles. We've got a new collectible group with the active items label and items. And so this thing is applying a particular style to each item in the group. Oh, I neglected to sort my items before I rendered them. That's a thing I like. So I'll do a quick sort by. We'll do that by name. When the groups are small, I doubt that it'll even really matter that much, but it can help when you're trying to scan quickly. So I'll give myself that advantage. I don't want to accidentally trigger an alert phase because I can't find the Japanese flying squirrel in my list from miscellaneous. That'd be upsetting. Okay, so added that in. This is why I read the diffs before I make my commit. So I have a little warning getting logged out if the group has no items. It seems like that's always going to happen, so I'll have to come up with something a little more robust for this, like feeding in an empty list or something like that. The thing is, I want to know when I'm neglecting to send things in, so I need to improve that. Yeah, so we got the data loading flag set up in our store, and we bail out of rendering our collectibles if data loading has not been completed. That all seems fair. We retooled the way the collectibles list works. It's now pushing out a series of groups. Our new component. More data load stuff. All right. More data load stuff. Redux demands that you touch every file whenever you add a new reducer or action type, so I guess that's expected. Okay, so let's see how to sum this up. Added collectible group component with zone awareness, right? Because we're giving a different visual treatment to items depending on which zone is active. added data load bool to store. I'm going long. So I guess I'll break a line. Actually, what I'm going to do is CollectibleGroup plus anything else? More cool style. Okay. Okay. We build out a little list here because we actually covered a lot of ground in this session. Let's see. If I were smarter, I would probably split these commits up somehow, but separate the concerns a little bit. But I think we'll be okay. All right, well, I think that about covers it. Push that out. And yeah, so let's see. What would be next? So I guess the next to-dos would be I can add them in, so I don't have to think about it tomorrow. CollectibleGroup to do. Add local state to control collapsed state. That's an ugly sentence, okay, but that'll do it. Oh, right, yeah, and so this other thing that I kind of considered, and it may not be practical, I guess this is an example of what I would be thinking about. But I know that I just said keeping things alphabetical is good for quick scanning. But one idea that I had was basically floating groups where everything is inactive down to the bottom of the list when you're flipping through zones. And I feel like that would either be genius or obnoxious, and I don't know which. And as I kind of click through here, I actually don't see a lot of cases where there's an entire group that's inactive. Actually, I feel like I got this backwards. I totally got this backwards, so I could be, oh, you know what, FM, that is a great point. So if I complete every single item in that group, yeah, there's no reason to look at it anymore. So that would definitely be a thing. That would definitely be a thing. That is an excellent point. Now, the game is set up in such a way that I think many of these groups will stay alive for a long period of time. Certainly the snakes will, and I have to fix this in a hurry, because this is it's one of these things where it's like a double negative almost. So this may change my opinion. Okay, and that also brings to light an important problem. So active items is looking incorrect for the unfiltered list. And so what I want to check here is that we have only these 4 snakes in the last zone. I mean, that's classic Owen right there. To not something. Yep. I do this all the time because I'm bad at my job. Yikes. Okay. So let's see. Yeah. Yes, we all are bad at programming. That's a fact. So in the case of active items being none, I think I need to go back up to the top here. So right here, I'm setting active items to everything. Which I thought would be correct. If active zone is not null, then we reduce it down to the subset of items that belong to the zone. Or an empty list. Ugh. Well, maybe this is part of the problem. I had to handle 3 cases previously. So let's see what happens if I sling a breakpoint in here. So we're hitting the breakpoint when I select one of these, which is great. This zone in particular was the one where I discovered the edge case of there are no items that match this zone. So let's see. When I step through, active items becomes an empty list, which is correct. Okay, so everything should look disabled. And when I hit none, I should not hit the breakpoint at all. But what happened? All right. Okay. So active items. Yikes. Do I have a typo somewhere? going to move this back up here. These are the important pieces to get right. So, okay, in this case, active items looks correct. What's your size? 48? Okay, so that's everything. And yet still, everybody says they're inactive. So now I descend to where to here. So what's the result of this? What if, I don't know. What is that guy? Item ID is 25. So that's what I was meant to be running. So get returns something, includes does not. Oh. Because active items is a map type. Index sequence. God damn it, Immutable.js. Why do you do this to me? Oh, and it's also full objects. Look at that. Okay, so that's a problem. What I need, if I go back out here, instead of a value sec, I need is there such a thing as a key sec? I guess I'll find out, because that's the bug right there. I want a list of IDs, not a list of collectibles. And the fact that it looked like it was working in certain cases, makes me wonder if I have a branching problem somewhere. No, this looks like it's behaving correctly. Okay. So yeah, it's kind of interesting from a game design perspective to see how they kind of thread all of these different varieties of animals throughout the landscape of the game. You know, you really have to keep your eye open for this and that as you progress. And I still don't have data in here representing the points of no return. And I'm not going to encode that into the zone data unless I get to a point in the game where I fuck up, I think. So when it's too late, then I'll go back and I'll put some indicators on each zone if there's a if there's a section where you can't go back. That'll be fun. But okay, so I think disaster averted. That would have been bad. And it was a lot more involved than I thought it was. I thought I just needed to flip the sign on that one Boolean comparison there, but oh, point of no return info is cool. Yeah, I feel like I should already know, having played the game a few times. I did fuck up the last time I played through, though. I don't know if you're familiar with Metal Gear Solid 3, but one of my favorite boss fights in any video game ever is in this game, and it's elaborate, and there's like this sniper, and you have to chase him around through 3 or 4 different map areas, and you have to, you know, basically follow his footprints, and like there's different tells and stuff, so you're basically hunting him and stalking him through the jungle. The old dude, yeah. And if you kill him non-lethally, as ironic as that is, with most of the boss fights, if you do a non-lethal defeat of a boss, they drop special items. So you usually get camo with special abilities or a weapon or something like that. Anyway, his drop is like a huge deal because it's a tranquilizer sniper, anesthetic rounds, and so I went through the trouble to do the non-lethal kill on him, and then I forgot to pick up the sniper, and then I went into the next zone and couldn't get back. Super sad. That was really upsetting. But but it's fine. There have been many playthroughs, and there will be many more. But okay, so we fixed some things. So we added the to-do for local state for collapsing groups, and I'm going to take FM suggestion for this to do downsort groups that are 100% complete, because that is smart. That is very smart. Yeah. And then I think after that, let's see. So bug fix, flipped inactive for collectible groups, flipped inactive. Oops, can't type. Inactive queue. Adds to-dos for tomorrow. And this is where GitHub gets mad at me because my line's too long, but too bad, GitHub. Eat my long line. Okay, that's great. So I've been doing a stream every day, sometimes 2 for the past few days, because I've been on PTO, and that's awesome. But I'm at a conference tomorrow and the day after, So I may not stream at all Friday and Saturday, but I'll be back on Sunday to keep pushing through. I want to make progress on this so that I can finally play Metal Gear again. That's why there's so much pressure here. But yeah, I'm gonna sign off. That was a good session. Made some good progress, and big thanks for joining and tuning in. I enjoy the company, and yeah, I hope to catch you next time. Take care.